This is the Scorer to Follow podcast.
It's the Scorer to Follow podcast. I'm your host Neil Mundy, and joining me tonight are Dan Laundy.
Hello.
And imminent father Mark Annals to my right.
Hello.
Just basically, me and Dan have got the hot towels on standby and boil some water. We're going to get everything you need in case the big moment happens.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm not painting your nursery, so
It's already painted. It's all right.
There you go. See,
So that's a
he
job you don't have to
supplanted
do.
you. He supplanted you, but that means you could do something else.
like produce this podcast.
Well, absolutely. Let's get into the nitty gritty. So we're going to be talking about Leicester and what's gone on there. Also talking about Liverpool, unfortunately for me. And we're going to do a quick review of European games.
It's more unfortunate for me.
Yeah, more unfortunate for you and Mark to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Championship we'll talk about, which is getting a bit exciting. Finish up with a preview of the weekend's games in the league. So let's start. We might as well start off with Leicester, although I think that's going to segue between Leicester and Liverpool. But an almost inevitable recovery on the Monday night. But I guess the question is, where do they go from here? I mean, a lot of people have been very vocal about Ranieri. Personally, I didn't think they should have sacked him, but I can see an argument for it in the fact that they're 17th and sliding, and you could argue that Monday's win over Liverpool is the first kind of sign of a slight renaissance that they'll get. They'll keep if they stay in this league, they'll keep the TV money. Dan Laundy.
Yeah, my argument immediately to that is if the players were always capable of going out there and playing somewhat similar to how they did last year, and Liverpool brought it in upon themselves to a degree, because they allowed Leicester to play the way that everybody knows that when they're at their best. But I do think if the players are capable of turning up and putting in that performance as soon as a man leaves, it does suggest to me more that the players just weren't putting in the shift they should have been, rather than it being anything Ranieri could have done. Because no coach could change it tactically or mentally even in 2 days. So you have to question what the players were playing at for the last 6 months.
Do you reckon, Mark? What's your thoughts?
I think it's more the same really. But I don't think it's right. Like we said, if the players are capable of playing like they were last season, and also we saw that against Liverpool, should they just decide that they're not going to play for the manager? I mean, to try and force him out. I don't think it's the way to go about it. Really, you just need to go on about your business. And
it's the fans that I think suffer. And the fans are still there cheering them on, because obviously we as fans are a fickle bunch anyway. Mm-hmm. Irrespective of what's going on, ultimately you want the team to do well. But certainly on Monday, when you saw that, a lot of the fans must have been leaving the stadium thinking, well, we're defending champions. All right, we don't necessarily expect to be up there again, but what's been going on?
Yeah, well, it's funny, isn't it? Because essentially the same thing happened last season with Mourinho, and obviously, I think the rumours are slightly less clear this time. There's talk that people rebelled against Ranieri, but it's not as obvious as it was when Chelsea players stopped playing for Mourinho. But I mean, does it suggest in a way that you put so much energy and emotional and mental energy into winning the league, into a campaign before, that you almost are bound to fall off the cliff now? There's no one really retaining this league title, and nobody even making a good defence of it. City, in the last couple of years, City in 2015 finished a poor second, and Chelsea melted down last year, Leicester melted down this, United fell away after winning the title. Does it suggest that the title's almost becoming like a draining force?
I think it's hard to build a dynasty where you win championships or trophies back to back, because the slightest patch of bad form or players not pulling their weight, and immediately now clubs look to change. Even you look at obviously Manchester United, they had the 27 years or whatever it is they had with Ferguson, but then from that they had 9 months, 7 months with David Moyes, and then a year or so with Van Gaal, and okay, Mourinho comes available, and if you're a top club, you're going to be sniffing around him. But the chopping and changing seems like it's now everywhere. I don't think it matters, even at the top clubs, Chelsea, Man City, everyone's chopping every 2 years.
Do you think though, Mark, that this kind of thing where it almost, I think almost like a gang of players, they trust their lives into a manager for 9 months, and they go with someone like Ranieri, and it's a journey and it's amazing, and it's almost like just so hard to get that again that perhaps they feel it's gone stale. Perhaps that's in the sense, if they are trying to get rid of the manager, perhaps that's kind of the case they're making. Or
well, Leicester obviously massively overachieved last season, and obviously reached that level, and they were never going to keep that high level this season. But you wouldn't have expected them to drop, into the relegation places really as they are. Regarding obviously them just, the players just deciding that they're not going to pay for their manager now. It's just all about player power now, isn't it? It's just it seems about the way it's going, isn't it? If it comes down to the players decide, we're not going to play, and then it all falls on the manager in the end, and he loses his job.
I do wonder though if it's that. I mean, obviously we're all speculating. Nobody knows what goes on behind closed doors and in dressing rooms. But I almost wonder if it's that clear cut, or if it's actually almost a subconscious thing where the players just they don't actually want the manager sacked or anything like that, but they just don't try as hard because they're shattered from the previous.
And they
season.
just want a change, and it's probably the case. Like Ranieri plays a certain way, and it's not working, and he's just obviously there's going out week in, week out, and just say, okay, we'll just keep going, and the players are obviously thinking, look, we're doing the same thing every week, it's not working, we need to change something. But it's in the end, it's up to the manager.
I can see
who he wants to play and what tactics he wants to play.
I can see the argument, but when you go back to Ferguson again, once he got through those rocky first couple of years that, let's face it, you wouldn't get now, you'd be out in your ear already. But once he got through those rocky years and started winning trophies regularly, he sort of had an element of control at the club, and the board trusted him. They weren't going to get rid of him, and he was just given that spell to progress and do what he did. I wonder whether our clubs now need to look at doing that rather than just taking heed of what a few players say, because perhaps they don't like the fact that chicken burgers have been taken off the menu, or the silly things that have been rumoured in the last few days. I think clubs have to now invest time into keeping a manager.
It's not a done thing, and in a sense you could be on something there, because nobody is doing that. Somebody could do it and exploit that idea. I mean, you've got Arsene Wenger is the last of the great stars.
Yeah, and Arsenal fans would suggest that that's an example of a reason not to do it. Although
Possibly,
he's still keeping them in the top of the league every year.
Well,
so.
It's good to have stability, but when it coming from on the basis of what Arsenal fans are thinking, they're seeing that well, there's no progression now. It's all right. It's all right. Obviously, getting to a certain stage and doing well, but if we're all expecting progression, but that's just not happening.
Yeah,
now.
so in that case, a fresh voice
could
necessary.
Yeah,
could actually.
But for Leicester, they've had Ranieri for a year,
year and a half.
Yeah, obviously won the league, and then obviously
players
9 months later.
I can't be sick of the voice of a manager after a year. I mean, you'd be changing manager every season if that was the case.
Quite a lot of teams now are.
I was going to say there are managers.
Do you think the Watford manager will still win his job at the end of the
season? Well, that's questionable, isn't it? Yeah. But I mean, going back to Leicester, obviously they've got a reasonable result previously in Seville.
Yeah.
When they obviously got that late goal through Jamie Vardy, wasn't it? If it was late actually, but goal in the second half, Jamie Vardy, and it seemed a strange time for the sacking to come about.
Because that was also a decent result for Leicester.
Well, exactly, it gives them an opportunity in the second leg. But
exactly.
the rumours are, you say, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but the rumours are that a delegation of senior players were approached by board members after that game to make a decision or to offer their opinion. Now, I don't know why you would particularly choose that game, so it suggests to me that the board, bearing in mind the board only gave them a dreaded vote of confidence 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It seems a strange time to then go to the players and say, well, actually,
Yeah,
what
we're
do
not
you
sure
think?
about this fella. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just it's the most shock about it is just the timing, because you look at how Leicester are doing in the league, and they're not doing well. So you thought, you'd probably think that obviously it may be coming, but like I said, Champions League they've done quite well this season, and they've lost a game against Sevilla, but they've got an away goal 2-1. All they need to do is win 1-0 at 1-0 at home, and they're through. So it was a bit, like I say, it's just a bit of a strange time to actually to come about.
Do you think there's anything to be said, Neil, that a lot of the players apparently signed bumper contracts in the summer off the back of winning the league? Do you think that sort of has taken away perhaps some of their drive to repeat it this year?
It's the oft argument, isn't it, that you shouldn't sign in a new player down because they'll become complacent. You couldn't possibly say without knowing the player, but I mean, certainly it looks like Vardy and Mahrez, bar Monday and a few other occasions, have been the shadows of the players they were.
Mahrez particularly has gone missing.
I was just going to say, Mahrez has not been anything like this as player he was last season. Obviously, Vardy's shown it in flashes.
It could well be that. I mean, again, it's another thing that's completely unprovable, but it's possible that some of them have slacked off in their heads. What interests me is the fact that tactically on Monday night they were pretty much the same as they would have been under Ranieri, and I mean, we can go into why Liverpool were probably the perfect opposition for them to play, and I'm going to slaughter those bastards at length in a minute. But I mean, bypassing the midfield, long balls, chasing for Jamie Vardy, who's extremely quick and physical, and that's the sort of thing that he did. And Ranieri did. So it's kind of a bit simplistic, I suppose, to argue that what he did wasn't working. There must have been some element of the players not putting it in for him, because all of a sudden they're charging around like Derbyshires on Monday night.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Shreves, the Sky reporter, was doing a few interviews after the game, and I think Vardy and Drinkwater were both interviewed, and so was the interim boss. Is it Shakespeare?
Yeah. Shakespeare.
And I've got to be honest,
having a field day with that, I imagine.
They all seemed really, all did seem a little bit shifty. Everyone did just seem a little bit, because they obviously asked quite pertinent questions about, why has this come about tonight, and you didn't feel as though they were quite awkward in front of the camera, and you didn't feel as though they wanted to give the real answers. You could sort of read between the lines, I felt. I
think it's quite revealing as well, isn't it? Because, I mean, it's all very well when they had all that positive publicity and won the league and everyone loved it. But, they're sort of in the spotlight for a negative reason now, and you can tell sometimes by reactions that people are perhaps uncomfortable about that. Obviously, we're insinuating here, we don't know what's actually happened. Can't stress that enough. But it is interesting to look at sort of body language and in a time like that and think what actually did go on. We'll never know for sure, but
till Jamie Vardy releases his film or something.
Oh yeah,
it'd be looking extra.
Maybe that's why he hasn't scored enough goals this season. He's been concentrating on maybe stardom.
Well, there was a line that came out apparently from the producers of that movie that's forthcoming, and it basically said, "Don't worry, the movie is going to go ahead as planned. Nobody needs to like that's the top of anyone's priority. It's a movie about Jamie Vardy."
Well, it's just going to be the end. Like in the end, sometimes when they come up with like the information about what happened next, it's going to be like Claudio was fired 9 months after this finished.
But Leicester stayed in the league in the last day victory over whoever.
Yeah. So there.
I do wonder if there'd be all this fuss though, had it not been for the fact that Ranieri's obviously a really popular and likeable guy.
Yeah.
If it had been David Moyes, for example. I mean, sorry, David.
He shed a few tears.
If he'd won the league and then been chopped 6 months later, I wonder if there'd be quite as much fuss.
You could only dream of that, couldn't you?
I was going to say, Moyes winning the league is starting to make me laugh slightly. Well, you're right, actually. And in fairness, I obviously mentioned Mourinho earlier. And everyone thought it was hilarious that he got sacked last season, and probably rightly so.
It was just because obviously just how Mourinho is.
Compared to
and so he thinks he's the best, and obviously as soon as he got sacked, everyone's going,
Mourinho's behaviour was quite erratic at times for that 6 months last season.
Lost it, didn't he?
Even starting out early with the incident with Hazard being treated on the pitch.
Yeah, it was
having a pop at the doctor, and
bizarre chain of events, wasn't it? Yeah, certainly was. Well, I mean, do you think they'll stay up now, Leicester?
Yes, I suspect so, although it's hard to, Liverpool, like you're about to speak about, Liverpool were awful, so it's hard to know off of one game.
It's away form that's been their problem as well, a lot, isn't it? And I think that's where they have struggled at home as well.
I'll go on record and say I hope not.
You hope they don't stay up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prior to that match, and what happened, I was in Ranieri's corner and I hoped they'd pull it through and sort of finish mid-table. But after those actions, it all seems a little bit sordid. So, no, I hope they go down.
Fair enough. Bold statement from Dan Laundy.
I hope they go
hates down. Leicester, wants them to go down. Mark, what do you reckon?
Well, no,
the players will turn their back on the club immediately, of course, and bugger off somewhere else.
No, I'm kind of going down the same way of thinking, because I don't think. I mean, it's a tough one. I think the way they've done it and the timing they've sacked him is completely wrong, and the whole thing about players not playing for him and turning against him and going to the board behind his back, and so if all that's true, it's pretty disgusting. So after all that, them just getting him sacked, they think we can just get on now. If they got relegated, don't think I'll be too bothered.
Well, somebody said to me that apparently the guy that stepped up, this Shakespeare fella, he's really popular with the squad. Well, of course he is. He was the number 2, and he was the one they all confided in or went to.
He was the good cop.
Yeah. Well, now he's the manager. Over the next 2 or 3 months, that changes. I think the same thing happened with Steve McLaren. I'm sure he was always a popular number 2, but
he couldn't command their respect though.
As a head coach.
Yeah. Well, there's talk of Hodgson, isn't there? Could be
an England segue there from.
Yeah. But just there is talk of Hodgson, and I sort of, my opinions on Hodgson are well known, but I sort of think he keeps them up in a kind of terrible, pragmatic, skanking 0-0s away from home kind of way, in a kind of way that only Hodgson can. I just can see him doing that. I don't quite go along with this narrative that they've killed football.
No, it's a bit extreme.
I don't like what happened with Ranieri, but I think people sort of blew it over the top a bit. But I suppose that was the nature of it, because people also blew their league title triumph over the top, even though that was extraordinary. So I probably would like to see him go down on balance, purely because we, as I'm going to come on to, we always seem to get beat there. But I've no real, at the end of the day, what will be, and if they're in the league next season, they're in the league next season, and we'll go from there, I suppose.
Okay, well, I suppose, seeing as you mentioned that Liverpool will seem to get done there, let's talk about Liverpool's performance.
Let's segue on to that shower of shite, shall we? Not much to say that hasn't already been said. I feared it. I feared it before the sacking, because I knew the sort of team we are and the sort of team they are. After the sacking, I had a suspicion that it was only going to go one way, and the first 20 minutes without conceding completely confirmed all of my suspicions.
Now, listeners, just to jump in there, I know it's easy to say things after the event, but genuinely, about 2 weeks ago, Neil said to me, Leicester haven't been scoring goals this year. I'm sure they'll put that right against Liverpool. So he did call it.
I did, and I'm not always pessimistic about my team, but in the last few weeks, Spurs at home aside, they haven't given me much reason to be optimistic. And again, I saw it on Mondays. Just similar failings, really. They can't dog out a game at the moment. It's incredibly frustrating, because you think, well, when they play well and they're pressing like dervishes and they're winning the ball back and they're scoring lovely goals, loads of pace, loads of energy, but they can't. If Liverpool can't play like that, there's nothing else. That is my problem. It's not really a plan B thing, because I think people get bogged down in that a bit, but it's just all of a case of sometimes just stay in a game. Watching that game, I could have quite happily, that could have remained 0-0 for 70 minutes, and then you try and nick one and you win 1-0. But it just was never going to happen. And it might, in fairness, if we'd had Jordan Henderson, it might have happened, because he's doing a good job at the base of midfield. Emre Can just isn't quite cutting it there at the moment, or weirdly he looked better when they moved him back to centre back, which is very strange. But So yeah, it's a bit disappointing, and it's a bit of a concern now, because you always feel like, well, yeah, you can have a dip, and it was looking like a dip, and now we beat Spurs, and we thought, well, we'll come out of the dip, and you're not necessarily going to go to Leicester, who just sacked their manager, and the players have got a point to prove and win, but you want to compete, and they didn't compete enough. They played okay at some stretches. They were all right at 2-0 down, which is weird, But for 10 minutes you think, well, you've handled 2-0 okay. You've got over the worst of it. But then you get to 3-1, and there's nothing, and you think, well, yeah, okay, you're still 3-1 down at the champions. You're likely going to lose, but you think, just give this a go for 5-10 minutes. They haven't been winning many games all season. The fans are on edge. Get another one, and you can at least make it anxious for them. At the very least, even if it's not going to happen, you're going to come away with a 3-2 and think, well, that's annoying, but at least we showed some heart there. And there was nothing.
I mean, I'm going to make a case for the defence, because I think that in the second half, although Liverpool were generally poor, they made a few chances that I seem to remember Schmeichel coming to the rescue on 2 or 3 occasions. So on another night, perhaps when Leicester were a bit more fragile, you may well have come away with a point.
Yeah, possibly.
Also, one person I feel a little bit sorry for is Lucas. Obviously, he can do it.
Him, yeah.
He can do a job at centre back. Hence why he's been playing there quite a lot this season. But he's the wrong side of 30. He's not really a defender, and he's up against the pace of Jamie Vardy.
Yeah.
So I think it's, well, I know obviously Lovren's out injured at the moment, but also you seem to. Klopp seems to favour him over Calvin at the moment.
Yeah, it's hard for him, because actually he played Harry Kane brilliantly the week before, well, the 2 weeks before.
Yeah.
So he's obviously got some attributes, but and I love the lad, to be honest. I think he's been a great servant for us over the last decade. But yeah, you're right. I mean, in a sense, putting up against the pace of Vardy is a mismatch. He's not going to match up the pace, and he's not tall either.
No, he's not. No.
Which is a problem when you've got massive grocks up front, and like some Wes Morgan and Hoof coming up as well. It's a bit of a mismatch. I know Matip's taller, but
Could you have perhaps played that young lad there that seems to have stepped in this season, done quite well?
Joe Gomez.
No, I know Joe Gomez coming back from injury, but no, he's broken through
from
the
youth
youth team.
Alexander-Arnold.
Yes.
He's more of a right back, really.
I know, but if you're going to play that system, could he have played there to negate Vardy, perhaps?
I suppose he's got the pace, so you could argue it. I mean, you would call it a calculated risk, but it's also a risk to put Lucas there now. So I mean, you could argue a case for it, but I suppose it's hard as well when you consider that he's only ever played right back in the senior team, to throw him in centre back against the champions, against Vardy in a hungry mood.
Exactly.
You might well have seen a similar result, or even worse.
Yep.
So, but I think it's clear that we need to upgrade at centre back, because I think Lovren's decent, and actually we missed Lovren quite a bit in that game. Like you said, the physicality of him, the fact he's tall, wins his battles sometimes. Well, wins his battles most of the time at the moment. Mm-hmm. That would have been good, but I think ideally he would be our first change centre back. We'd sign someone in to play alongside Matip. Klavan could be fourth choice, and we'd probably, with a heavy heart, I would let Lucas go. But yeah, I mean, it's just there's no, there's been a lot of anger around it, understandably, and people talking about the manager and stuff, which I think is ludicrous.
Well, I was going to go on to that point.
Yeah,
because obviously, we've just said, under rather extraordinary circumstances, Leicester have sacked Ranieri for being roughly where you'd expect them to be.
Yeah.
Klopp has now had a similar time. Did he arrive roughly the same time?
A couple of months later, but yeah, roughly the same time.
So, bearing in mind how football is at the moment, where a year and there's no improvement or no discernible change, clubs start to make decisions, or managers start to get under pressure from the factions of the crowd. Where does Klopp sit? I mean, I guess the board aren't going to sack him, but is he safe still, or?
I'd say so. I think it would be one hell of a surprise if he got sacked. I know obviously your Liverpool are not getting results in some games where you really think they should be, and obviously the performance against Leicester just didn't really seem like they really wanted to win that game. but I think it'd be a massive shock now if they sack Klopp.
But Neil mentioned that these results against sides that are struggling, they aren't one-offs anymore.
No, it can't keep happening because obviously Liverpool should be challenging for the league. But
I mean, if that was happening to a Koeman at Everton, or obviously Mourinho at United, there would be a hell of a lot of press pressure, I think. So, does he get away with it because he's a popular character again, a bit like Ranieri?
I mean, I think you might be right there, but about it happening to a Mourinho or Koeman, but he's getting the results in these big games, which is kind of like, so you think, well, he's proving that he has something.
But it's just against just something when you play the so-called smaller teams.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, it's just, he's just not getting the results, which is strange.
Yeah, to be honest, I think the problem with the Klopp, the idea of any kind of idea of looking at Klopp's position is, what's your move from there? Because I don't think there is a move for Liverpool at the moment. So I think it would be foolhardy to rush into something, and you've simply got, I don't know who you would get to come in.
I agree, but I think when the pressure on Wenger, again, the similarities.
But ours is the other way round. We're all right against the smaller teams. It's just we get anyone in the top 6 just torn apart.
I have joked that we should merge.
You should.
More and more, I'm starting to think that maybe we should. But the only problem is it'd be called Arsepool. So
nobody wants to
not sure
sing about that on the terraces.
It's strange. But I mean, I think in this situation, with the manager being the way he is, the way he wants to work, you look at his record with Dortmund, where he wasn't brilliant for the first 2 seasons, he was a bit mediocre, and then 3 and 4 he kicked on.
I'm all for giving managers time. I wholeheartedly agree.
I think he needs a little bit of.
I think he needs more players.
Yeah, he needs he needs a striker because he's obviously got Origi, but he doesn't play all the time. Obviously, Sturridge can't stay fit.
Doesn't get in the lineup often when he is fit.
And most of the time you play Firmino up there, who's not really a striker, so you play with obviously an out striker a lot of the time. But you can do that because you've got the Lallanas, Coutinho's,
it's the 4-3-3 he likes to play with them interchangeably.
This is where it goes back to that plan B, or I know you don't want to reference it as plan B, but you haven't got an alternative. You haven't got maybe 2 pacey wingers you can throw on, or a big battering ram like a Crouch or a Carroll that you once had.
Well, you got
it's a plan. I think it's a plan A.5 if I'm going to be really pedantic about it, because I think the player. Our style doesn't need to drastically change, but Crouch is an excellent shout. So obviously not him, but somebody with the ability of a Peter Crouch, who is 24 or 25, that would be ideal for this team, because not only did he wasn't the quickest player, but he had enough technique and enough skills, but also a bit of a battering ram. So you're not just. Sometimes you can mix it up and put a cross into the box, and it's not just aimless.
Maybe somebody like a Mario Mandzukic, something like that might.
I mean,
I'll be focal point, but then he's going
to
play most weeks, I suspect.
We're not going to sign him, but somebody like Giroud would actually be a really good player for this Liverpool team, but and another pacey winger, I think, as well. But I mean, it was sort of a form of catharsis really after that defeat. But I looked at the players in the squad and thought, do we need to sell him? Do we need to sell him? Do we need to sell him? And actually, there weren't that many that I thought definitely sell. And there weren't. So, and then I thought, well, that means we don't actually need that many players. And I still do think that it's fine tuning rather than even the nature of these defeats are ultimately very
just
depressing.
Need a little bit more depth in some positions, really. Like I say, like you said, anyway, the players you've got there already, there's nothing wrong with them. It's just, I think you just need a little bit more depth.
You're on a similar journey to Spurs, I would say.
Yeah, the two teams are very similar.
Quite similar.
I think in a lot of ways right now. In the where they're at, but I think so.
Well, just for the Liverpool fans out there that'll be saying it, what about the fact that Klopp's record is very similar overall to Brendan Rodgers, who obviously got the chop? I think game for game, think his points and record is quite similar.
I haven't seen.
It certainly was a few weeks back.
I haven't seen the stats, but but I mean, even if you use that example, Rodgers was given 3 seasons and Klopp's had 1.5.
Did nearly win a title in that time.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm no fan of Brendan Rodgers. I mean, anyone can win the league at Celtic, Brendan. But
26 points or whatever it is.
I mean, don't get me wrong, the run Celtic one is incredible, but I'm pretty sure that us three could rock up and just tell them.
Yeah, I reckon we could put in a bit of a challenge. Rodgers had Suarez. I don't think Klopp's got anyone quite of that calibre.
Oh no, Suarez is obviously world class.
We weren't a one-man team with that Rodgers team, but
with Sterling one side and Sturridge the other, it was
that was some front three really, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think Klopp on the whole, his signings have been better than Rodgers as well at the moment. Rodgers, I don't want to go into it too much because it's a bit in depth, but he signed. He was quite fond of signing a lot of British players or British-based players, and it didn't really work out. And to be honest, Klopp's signings have been pretty good, bar probably the goalkeeper who you could
still
argue
young
the jury's
anyway.
still out on. So
I'm trying to think who else Klopp's brought in actually, high profile.
The goalkeeper, it's a difficult one though, isn't it? It's
Firmino.
like just to get.
Yeah, I think
Klopp signed Firmino.
No, actually, he was signed under Rodgers, but which is weird because he is like the epitome of a Klopp player. If you ask me to name one Jurgen Klopp player in the team, I'd probably say Firmino. Firmino would probably just edge out Adam Lallana, which I couldn't imagine I would have said when Klopp came in. But I think the goalkeeper thing is weird, and actually I think. I don't know what we'll do in the summer, but I would sell Mignolet and buy in an established number one goalkeeper. But who that is,
I genuinely suspect Liverpool will end up signing Joe Hart.
I could live with it, I suppose. He's not a favourite of mine, but
he's a decent keeper. He is a decent keeper, but he's like I say, he's just got a mistake in him, unfortunately.
Yeah. But he's probably a slight upgrade on. I was going to say Ranieri for some reason. I was looking at the board and it said Claudio Ranieri. So that's a really weird thing to say. He would probably be a slight upgrade on Mignolet, but I don't think he would be a really firm upgrade. But then I don't know who else there is out there.
Slight tangent. I don't want to go off too much offline, but
tangent away.
Well, what about? I was talking to somebody about this the other evening. What about Kasper Schmeichel? Has he got one moved in him to a bigger club? He's obviously quite a commanding keeper. I don't know how good he is in relation to the top players, but is that a possibility?
Hard to say, isn't it? I mean, I can't. He does look good at Leicester, but I think there's so little pressure on him there. Everton have been talked about, and I can sort of see that happening. I don't know why. I can see him at Everton.
I wouldn't say you'd automatically see him go to one of the top four clubs. Yeah, I'd say someone like an Everton or
West Brom or a Southampton.
Yeah, something like that. A team like that.
You say about top four, but I mean Liverpool aren't in there. So.
Top six though. It's really
top six. Yeah, I mean
when you look at it now, and I'm not just saying that because we're falling down and down it. It is more of a top six. Isn't
it?
I
talked about like the the Manchester United, the Man Cities, the Liverpools, the Tottenhams, the Chelseas, and the Arsenals. I wouldn't necessarily say that he'd go straight to one of those teams. Maybe Arsenal.
I don't know.
It would be a punt, wouldn't it? It wouldn't be. I mean, because you've got. I mean, United, Spurs have got good goalkeepers. Chelsea have got a brilliant goalkeeper. Arsenal have got a great keeper. So he wouldn't be getting in any of those teams. And then Liverpool and one other. City. And you could sort of perhaps see. Was he at City?
He was at City as a youngster.
Yeah. Because I mean that obviously.
I think he joined Notts County.
He did, yeah. Well, they had all
that money for a week.
Yeah,
so Sol Campbell.
Absolutely crackers, wasn't it? It was like, you've won the lottery for a month. Now you're poor again, and everyone's left. Ericsson was there for like 2 days.
Oh, nothing. I'm sorry.
It was. That was like one of the oddest episodes in football. I've done my pissing and moaning. I think the rest of the season just needs to be, obviously got Arsenal on Saturday, which is a big game. People are already going, we'll win that game.
But you will, yeah.
I mean, but theoretically...
It's not at 12:45, is it?
No, it's not. It's an evening game.
Oh, is it?
Arsenal might turn up.
You might be all right. Yeah. You might be all right.
Yeah, but Ozil's had his lunch by then. So
apparently we're good in evening games, apparently as well.
Well, you were the other week, much to my consternation.
No, we've had a week off as well, haven't we? So
yeah. Well, I thought the week off would help us, but we were worse. I mean, people saying we'll win it, but I mean, you know, you're playing a good side. Eventually, you know, you can have a good record against good sides, but eventually, a good quality side's going to come and beat you or get a point.
I think that it also depends what Arsenal turns up, because I'm still, much as it pains me, I still firmly believe that if Arsenal turn up 100% on it, Arsenal can turn anybody over.
Absolutely.
Well, they can, but we just don't do it enough.
But like with no difficulty as well. That's what I mean. It literally is like a knife through butter sometimes when Arsenal are at their best.
And you can totally see Arsenal putting together like 8 or 9 games in a row, and in March, April, and May,
and taking 4 from Spurs with a week to go.
Which won't matter when Man United win the Europa League.
True.
True. Which actually brings us on to Europe.
Yes.
I'm
Europe.
loving this.
Seamlessly.
This is the first podcast we're doing as this unit, as this format, and nailing the segues. So I'm very much enjoying that. But yeah,
you'll be the judge of that, obviously, listeners. But we're enjoying it, so
yes. Sort out Liverpool, but let's move on to Europe. And moving on to Europe, and I've lost my agenda notes. But it doesn't matter.
Spurs and Wembley.
Yes.
Spurs, the Wembley hoodoo, has struck again. Or do Spurs just not want to be in the Europa League, Dan? Discuss.
No, we did speak about the Wembley issue the other week. But I think they were fully intent on getting through. I mean, they played a strong side, first 11 really, in both legs, and still managed to cock it up. To be honest, when Dele Alli was sent off, and I'll quite happily go on record and admit that's one of the worst tackles I've seen for a few years. It was bad.
I think I only saw it repeated. It didn't look great, but
anybody that says, any fan that says that it was only yellow or something like that, you need to be a bit more realistic with yourself, guys. But Spurs went for it, and to be fair, for about 20 minutes in the second half of 10 men, I thought Spurs were phenomenal with their performance. They really did go to town, and I know this side are something like 8th in the Belgian league, so you can't get overly excited. But with 10 men, Spurs were running the show, and probably could have scored 4 or 5 on another night. Just unfortunate in the end. Genk, again, to give them their credit, defended exceptionally well in both legs.
Yeah.
So fair's fair. They got through, and I've got no complaints about that. As for the Wembley thing going forward, I am a little bit concerned about the league next season. There's a lot of pundits out there who've commented that Harry Kane struggles on a big pitch, and Wembley is obviously very big. So next season, you wonder if Spurs will be able to play the same way that they do, because a pressing game on a big pitch takes a lot more out of the legs.
Quite a tight
and leave
pitch,
gaps
isn't it?
as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and I do worry for next season, but then you have to hope that the board understand that and they stand by the team and they stand by the manager, because next year could be a tough year.
I just say that pre-season you get a load of friendlies and all at Wembley just to get used to playing at it.
Do you think, like, I mean, I think I might have raised this point before, but do you think the whole Wembley thing is sometimes like, because Genk are thinking, we're going to England, we're playing at Wembley. Like everyone raises the game when they play at Wembley. I don't know if that will happen in the league next season.
Apart from England.
Yeah, obviously.
Arguably.
Yeah, and lower their game by some considerable margin. But I don't know if that'll happen next season, because it'll become more of a regular event. Like it might be for the first team that goes there, if it's a promoted side or something. They might bloody hell, we're going to Wembley. But in mid-November, it'll just be another ground. So I wonder if that factor will sort of wear off a bit as the season goes on.
Maybe. I mean, I still don't really like the idea of using Wembley. I think it's hard to ground share with another club, but I'd have preferred something that perhaps more captured what White Hart Lane's like. A bit smaller, tighter to the pitch.
Loftus Road.
I was thinking Loftus Road, but I hate Loftus Road.
I was going to say West Ham. I'd love to see Spurs and West Ham ground share just for the sheer chaos. Absolute bedlam.
That's another one.
Yeah, I mean, just something with a bit more of an atmosphere. But the board have obviously got this grand idea that we can set it out every week, 80,000 people, and
what we can.
Financially, if you're paying off a new stadium, there's method in the madness, but you may pay for it in terms of Champions League revenue. Or
see obviously happened to Arsenal, didn't they, when they moved to the Emirates?
I think it's a calculated risk.
Yeah.
Well, it's what big teams have to do.
Yeah.
Now.
You have to take the step.
Yeah. If they can get more, if there's loads of fans that can't get tickets, and they think, well, okay, we need to make more space so these fans can come in and we can make this revenue. It's what they've got to do. It's what all the big clubs have got to do.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
and I'm excited by the prospect of what's to come.
Yeah.
I really do think the stadium could take Spurs to another level. It doesn't necessarily mean they'll win leagues and stuff. I'm not saying that, but I do think it will keep them consistently challenging.
Well, you never know, because you've got a core. You've got the core of
a good young side.
If they're willing to stay after next year, because like I say, I don't know what to expect from that. I think Spurs could drop to maybe 6th or 7th. It's quite feasible, in my opinion.
I think. Well, I don't really like see him leaving because he's like come through Tottenham and stuff. But I think the most important thing is keeping hold of Harry Kane.
Yeah.
If the Real Madrids and Barcelona's come calling, what are you going to do? But I think Kane obviously. I think he's happy there and he won't want to leave.
I think he really suits this league as well. I mean, he's a good player.
He'd probably do well in Italy as well.
Possibly.
Yeah,
I don't see him setting the world alight in Spain, and that's not to do him any disservice. He's just a very English striker.
He's a very like Alan Shearer striker, and we've had nobody like him since Shearer, really.
Yeah, his future's certainly bright, I think. But this was again slight segue, but it did surprise me when Spurs were playing at the weekend, and we won't obviously go on about the game, but the fact that they were 3-4-0 up very early, and then with half an hour to go, they still didn't bring Janssen on. For a young guy that's struggling to adapt, struggling to score goals, when you're already in a team that's comfortably ahead, take your key man off, get the round of applause, and get the lads some confidence.
Yeah.
It's weird something like Janssen. He's just really out of favour now, isn't he?
Yeah.
Really.
Son has really stepped up when he's come on. So
Pochettino reminds me a bit of Rafa Benitez in some ways, and I think that's one of them. And I think suddenly Rafa, when he realised that Robbie Keane wasn't up to it, he just bombed him out, and he wasn't bothered about keeping him in for a few minutes here or there, or coming on when someone else has scored a hat-trick. And I think Pochettino might be a bit similar.
It does the commonest for him, I think. I mean, he's only young; they might loan him out. But anyway, I suppose we'll come back to that sort of thing later on. But I suppose we better return to Europe. So with Spurs being out, leaves the way clear for, I would argue, for Manchester United. Really got to be favourites for that competition.
Do you know what? I looked at the draw, for the Europa League draw. I was absolutely astounded. If they don't win this, they're by far the best side left in it. I think. I mean, you've got a couple of other teams like Ajax.
Rostov won't be.
It won't be an easy place.
No, that's true.
And they beat Bayern Munich. They come out the Champions League, Rostov, and they beat Bayern Munich. When Munich had pretty much a full-strength team. Yeah, last group game.
I certainly. Football makes me look a fool all the time, but I could well do it again. But I can see United advancing quite far into this competition, if not winning it.
I think it all depends on what United turns up.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they're still in the FA Cup, still fighting out for top 4, so they may decide to sacrifice it. But
it depends, if Ibrahimovic picks up an injury, you don't know, because he's obviously doing the business at the moment.
That's true.
So I mean, if he picks up an injury,
but I actually think their squad. I mean, I think United are still underachieving. I think their squad is probably only second to City's, possibly.
Well, you got people
in terms
like
of depth, Martial, on the
Rashford and stuff, who all can do a job. So
I just
it's just not quite. Well, it's starting to click, but it's not there 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, Mourinho's now won his obligatory first trophy with the League Cup.
Yeah.
I suspect if he's there for a longer period, he could have a sustained period of success.
Yeah.
I think, like say, football can make you look foolish, but I think it's quite easy to believe they could win the Europa League. They could still win the FA Cup. I think going to Chelsea will be tough, but if they get through that, you'd fancy them against anyone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Mourinho could end the season with 3 trophies.
He could emulate our treble that they all laughed at back in 2001. Said it was a plastic treble, but
the treble's
they might end up with a plastic treble of their own. Just a bit of a dig there.
Yeah.
So United, we're expecting to progress deep anyway. If they don't,
I would have thought so.
Like
you say, they're not going to be any mugs, Rostov, but
you'd be surprised. On paper, you'd look at that and think, it should get through that pretty comfortably.
And they've already qualified to go back into it next season.
Yeah.
Should they not make Champions League?
Yeah, that's true.
So it takes a little bit of pressure off European football.
You'd imagine them. You'd imagine them getting the Champions League now, because they're just creeping up and seem to be on form. So
If I
It's still
fear
4
the
into
difficult.
6 though. I mean, 6 into 4. Sorry,
Yeah.
wrong way round. So I mean, somebody's got.
Yeah,
this
well,
out.
yeah, 2 have got to drop out, but then
And you know, I
it's
mean,
difficult
at the moment,
to see.
obviously, it's looking like it might be us,
Well,
but things can change
possibly
quickly.
us.
Yeah, one of us.
Yeah.
Or both of us, possibly.
And the fact is, they have got so many games that you do, even with a squad that deep, you feel like something might have to give somewhere.
yeah,
They're going to win every single game.
well,
I've said
probably
that.
yeah.
So with Spurs out and United looking likely to progress quite
Yeah.
a way, I suppose we better quickly tip back into the Champions League. And there were some great games in the Champions League, weren't there?
Yeah.
Lots of goals everywhere. But should we start with Arsenal, Mark? Since you're an Arsenal.
Oh, he wanted to do that.
He
didn't
so
he?
wanted
Well, no,
to do that, yeah.
to be fair, we did cover that in the last podcast, so we don't need to go into
Do you want to discuss
Or-
anything at all?
the second- you
I
want
think
to-
all I'd say, all I'd be interested in knowing is what you think about the second leg. Do you think it's a pride thing? You get a goal
Yeah.
early enough. And
Yeah.
Okay, it's
No,
unlikely.
I'm not having that.
I honestly
having
do
that.
not. I honestly do not think we will go through, because one, I don't see us scoring 4 goals against Bayern Munich, and even if we did, we're not going to keep a clean sheet.
Yeah.
But I
Probably true.
I think there's no point. I don't think there's any point of Wenger just thought, we're out, we'll play the kids and stuff like that. I think he's got to play for pride, so he's got to go out there with his best team. If we say we win it on the night and we look like we win 2-1 or something, we still go out. At least we can see. At least we can say we won one game. Obviously it wasn't enough because the first leg was just atrocious.
You don't want it now to turn into a cricket score and aggregate,
No.
do you? Like an 8-1 or something, but they come
No.
down 3-0.
I mean, that still could happen with our best team, but I think we've got to go out to just with our best team and just win the game at all costs. It may not happen, but
Salvage.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't keep your better team back now, and focus solely on trying to clamber after Chelsea, because they're obviously quite a way off now too. But
no, I think there'd be a big backlash from the fans if we just went out there and rested loads of players.
You're coming off the back of a 2-week break.
Yeah.
I mean,
True.
I know that didn't work out too well
I don't
for
buy
us.
into this tiredness thing anyway. I think the best
No.
players in the world
Well-
play twice a week. I mean, look
Yeah.
at Barcelona; they never rest Messi, or very rarely rest Messi and Neymar and Suarez.
I mean, that they are a special case, to be honest. But
why are they?
I don't want to go.
The same.
I don't want to go off in a tangent, but
No.
you've got 3 incredibly gifted players there.
It's true, but human fitness and human psychological
that's true.
levels are all the same, or are all attainable to a similar level.
I think there's content in this.
Yeah, we probably should.
do a
There is.
But the reason
fitness
I-
pod.
The reason I moved on to Barca is just because you're in a similar position
Yeah.
to them. They've got to chase the game against PSG,
Yeah.
who
And they're 4-0
equally
down,
difficult
aren't they?
opponents. They're 4-0 down.
Mhm.
But I was listening to some Spanish coverage earlier, and there's a genuine belief amongst the fans of Barcelona and even the backroom staff of Barcelona that if anyone can turn it round, they can.
Mhm.
But they've
Yeah.
got a similar problem to you: one away goal, and they can't
Yeah.
defend. One away goal, and it's
No.
curtains.
I was just
They're
going to
out
say,
as well.
as you just touched on Barcelona, sort of like some news that's come through this evening.
Oh,
It's
breaking news,
kind-
people.
Kind of.
It won't be in 2 days.
It's
Yeah, this is true. Old news, people.
well, it's kind of on the same sort of line as like the whole Leicester fiasco, but obviously Barcelona have won 6-1 tonight, and apparently news come out and just say apparently Luis Enrique won't be the manager next season. They've said.
They've released that tonight. That
No,
news.
well, it's come out. It's come out and
Good
just
day
said
to
that
bury
it's.
bad news.
It's Barcelona haven't. I said it in so many words, but it's understood that he won't be in the job next season.
I think
That's been on the cards. a
Yeah,
while,
yeah.
it's
hasn't
not unexpected, but the nature of saying it again after
Yeah.
After a
like
6-1 win.
I suppose you bury bad news, perhaps, after a good result. I don't know. It's a
Well, makes you wonder,
peculiar
would-
PR strategy.
would
but-
Leicester have still sacked Ranieri on Tuesday if
Yeah.
if they'd won 6-1 in Seville? You do wonder.
Yeah.
Let's move on to
Manchester
the other
City.
teams. Oh yeah, Manchester City. They won. They had
What
a
a
good
game
win.
that was.
That was.
Do you know what? I still haven't seen any of the goals. I'm really annoyed. But I mean, who knows what the second leg score will be in that game? You couldn't tell it, could you?
Probably be 0-0.
Yeah, I was going to say
Well, that's the thing.
almost certainly it'll be a drab 0-0 draw. But,
That's the thing. City have scored 5, but they've also conceded 3.
Yeah.
So obviously,
Yeah,
3 away goals.
Monaco are
there.
more than capable of scoring
Yeah.
goals against anyone. So
Yeah.
uh,
definitely.
You know, at home as well.
Falcao looks a just looks like a completely different player than the one
Yeah.
we saw at Chelsea United. It's
Yeah.
like his old self again.
He's obviously recovered from that injury. I just wouldn't want to predict that. The only thing I think in City's favour, I suppose, is they've probably given up on the league, even though they are the closest, nominally the closest
I think
challengers.
they'll remain the closest challengers.
Yeah, I don't think
so. They might throw all their eggs in the Champions League basket.
Oh, I think they could. I think they will. I mean, that's going to be. I think that's the one that the owners obviously want.
Yeah.
They want to be. They want to win the Champions League. So I think.
It's why Pep came in. Isn't it?
Yeah. They're in a good position. I wouldn't say they're in a fantastic position because obviously they conceded the 3 goals.
Yeah.
But you would still expect them to go through that tie.
It could be like a high scoring draw or something.
Yeah.
Perhaps. I mean, let's say City do get through. How far can they go?
Well, I think they could. They've got the potential to go all the way. I mean, the only thing that draws them back is their defence.
Defence and goalkeeper.
Yeah, defence and goalkeeper. Going forward, the amount of players attacking talent they have.
Yeah, even without Jesus.
Yeah, even without Jesus. Obviously, he's gone out, but you've got someone like Sergio Aguero.
It's not a bad replacement to have, is it?
I think the problem is a bit like Barcelona. If defensively they're a little bit weak, on certain nights they can be a shambles and you can get at them.
Yeah.
So you always feel like across the course of another 6-7 games, whatever it would be, somebody will find them out.
They're not a purring machine, are they? Like a Bayern or even what PSG are starting to look like. They're a bit more of a, like you said, a bit more of a kind of like rapier thrust sort of going forward team, and then they'll concede one at the back.
I think if the draw keeps
2
them
minutes
apart,
later.
it could be a Bayern PSG final.
Yeah.
I think they're both capable now of. I mean, Bayern have been for some years, but PSG have fallen short. But I think that's a realistic final. I mean, Real Madrid will have something to say about that.
Or Leicester might. Still in it. I mean, I did watch some of that game. They were fortunate to lose 2-1, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I know we should touch on it earlier, but I mean, they had that good little period of play at the end, and you feel, well, if they can ride this bounce out, they might get through. I don't know how far it'll go from there, because you feel like, I mean, Seville look like a good team, and
they're in the title hunt in Spain, which is no easy feat, no tough feats are in.
And you feel like even if they did beat them, a team that was better at finishing its chances would punish Leicester if they played that poorly again.
Yeah, I mean, even if Sevilla scored once, you'd probably still think Leicester couldn't turn them over.
Yeah.
So, and even to be honest, even if they did, the big boys really would come calling after this round. So
I think it would be hard for them. I mean, it's the away thing. I think again, their away form's been poor all season, and this is what they do have a decent chance at home, because as we saw on Monday, saw against City, and a couple of other times this season, they managed to sort of raise their game at home, but away from home, if they were going to Bernabeu or PSG or somewhere like that, you would fear for them, I think, a bit.
I
especially
forgot about that City performance.
Yeah. Again, that was another one that came from nowhere, wasn't it? That they were sort of like 3-0 up after 20 minutes. Yeah.
So we think City have got the potential to go a reasonable distance on their day.
I don't see why not.
Short, but Leicester.
I think it's going to be too much for Leicester. I mean, I think
they might squeeze through this round.
Workout.
Yeah. I'm going to go for them to go through this round, but I think it comes to an end after that, I think.
I think even though they've got the away goal, I still think it'd be tough to get through Sevilla. As you said, I didn't see the game, but you said they were quite fortunate to see.
Sevilla are a good side.
Yeah, they
no
are
doubt about it. But
I think that I think Sevilla will score at Leicester, and then obviously the away goal becomes irrelevant.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I don't see them going any further.
So we've got to pin our hopes on the Manchester clubs in Europe this year then?
Pretty much.
How does that feel for a Liverpool fan?
Yeah, it's not great. Well, I don't mind City so much. I mean, they've never won the European Cup. And to be fair, United have never won the Europa League, so I suppose it wouldn't be a disaster, but it would deprive somebody of a Champions League spot.
It would,
That would be interesting. Came to shove.
No, I don't think that's how it works, is it?
Yeah.
If you win the Europa League, you're not just an additional club now.
Oh, hang on a minute.
I think they changed the rule after that year that Spurs got.
You
sticks
are now, aren't you? I think. Oh God, we're going to have to look that up.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
The Spurs law.
We know nothing about football.
Nothing.
Well, I don't anyway. Dan does, fortunately. Follow him, everyone. Follow him.
Or switch over to BBC Two. There'll probably be something naturey on. I don't know.
I imagine there is.
Back to the football.
Yeah. Well done, Mark. Rein us in. Before we tangent more, let's talk about the Championship, because I quite like the Championship.
Okay.
It's quite exciting. It's been quite exciting this season.
Interesting, yeah. And last night, obviously, Newcastle nicked to win at Brighton after being behind for quite a while.
Quite a fortuitous goal.
It was to equalise, really.
Yeah,
was.
strange, very strange goal.
Never seen I was saying I've never seen anything like it, but it's certainly a rarity. But I mean, I was caught that game in flashes.
Mm-hmm.
What struck me, Mark, is I thought both teams looked like. I mean, I'm going to say this now, and they'll both go on 15-game losing runs, but they both look like automatic promotion teams to me. They both look good enough. I know Brighton end up losing the game.
Yeah, but I agree with that. Actually, I think those two are the standout teams in the league. I mean,
Huddersfield might have something to say about it. I guess, but
Huddersfield was also
game in
doing
hand
well.
would take them 3 points behind.
Yeah, they would. So, I mean, David Wagner's doing pretty well there, isn't he? So, I mean, also if you got Huddersfield up, that'd be pretty amazing for for the club.
Yeah.
But I think Newcastle are always one that you expected to come straight back up because of just the size of the club, and they've managed to keep hold of most of their players and make some decent signings as well.
Yeah.
Brighton were obviously there and thereabouts last season, but fell away. But also this season doesn't look like that's going to happen. I mean,
they've been up there for a couple of years now, Brighton. So it's good to see them get their chance, I think.
And also, I suppose for you as well, it's probably nice to see Chris Hughton doing quite well.
Yeah, I think he's done well wherever he's been, and I think he had a raw deal at Newcastle.
He's got quite. I think it suits the Championship the way he likes to play. It's harsh to call him a defensive manager because I think there's a bit more to him than that.
Yeah.
But he does like to contain and hit teams on the break a lot. Brighton teams very
yeah.
But
that was me falling off in shock at the prospect of Chris Hughton being called defensive coach of the third highest goal scorers in the league.
There you go. No, I mean it's just I think just where I've seen him set up sometimes for the big games, and like Mark said, it's not. It's not. I think it's a good thing in the fact that he's, like you said, he's very well drilled. He's a bit like that at Norwich as well. I seem to remember, and they weren't free scoring, but they kept the game tight and would often win.
End of the day, if it's effective, it doesn't really matter.
Again, I hope if he gets them up that Brighton stick by him, and because they may well, if they get up, they may well struggle next season. So I hope that they do a bit of a dice and sort of stand by him if things don't go quite to plan, rather than sort of panicking and trying to do what they can to stay up. But,
they seem a sensible club to me, so you say these things.
It's true.
Who knows what that?
I think the two teams there now. I think that they would go up automatically. Playoffs is still quite tight. There's
literally just
falling off the chair again.
Mark's getting overexcited here with the prospect of the
championship. It's an exciting league. Anything can happen.
Yeah, there's still a few. I mean, you wouldn't really rule out. Fulham, they've got a game in hand. If they win that game in hand, they're only 2 points behind Sheffield Wednesday.
I think Fulham and Norwich need a bit, or Preston perhaps. They need a bit of a run.
I think
there's 5 points between Fulham on the 7th and Wednesday on 6th, and you feel like the longer that goes on, the less likely it is. But if they can start winning now, then they certainly could be in the shake-up.
And Norwich have got the squad to make a run, but they need to stop leaking goals.
Yeah.
But I would have to say that of those top 8, obviously if you discount the top 2, I would, if Norwich can make a run and get into the playoffs because of their nous, because they've played in the Premier League, I'd actually fancy Norwich to be the ones that come up again. But if it stays with that playoff 4 as it is, with Huddersfield, Leeds, Reading and Sheffield Wednesday, anyone got any thoughts as to who's strong enough there? I'd go for Leeds.
Well, you say strong enough. Obviously, bar Huddersfield Town, who've not sort of been in the top division any time sort of recently. Leeds, Reading, Sheffield Wednesday, all massive clubs. That have, well, more so obviously Leeds and Sheffield Wednesday. They're always in the top.
I'd like to see Wednesday come up. They nearly did it last year. They were a club that were up there when we were in our youth. You know,
Yeah.
so it's got like a little bit of a nostalgic feel.
I'm sure scorer to follow notch for Wednesday on more than one occasion back in the Teletext days.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I mean, probably just a little bit biased because my dad being a Leeds fan, but I'd like to see Leeds come up. I like Gary Monk. I think he's done a brilliant job there, and you know, looking at since he got sacked by Swansea, we know what's happened to Swansea.
Yeah,
I think to get Leeds up into the Premier League just be like a kick in the face really for
it's another questionable one that
especially if Swansea went back down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you know what? It's terrible really because I don't want to disrespect your dad or indeed my uncle, but I really don't want Leeds to come back up. I don't even know why.
What about the Leeds fans listening, of which there might be one? I don't.
Well, maybe. Yeah.
You've
Apologies.
just alienated the Leeds following.
Apologies if I think we give raw truth and opinions on.
We're Southerners; they don't care what we say.
Yeah, exactly. Our opinions are moot. Yeah, I don't even know why. I want Huddersfield to come up because it's a new team that hasn't been there before.
And also David Wagner, Jurgen Klopp's best mate.
Yeah.
I've just never really liked it. Did they play at the McAlpine? I don't know what it's called these days.
Oh yeah,
it's true. Not. It's the same stadium. It's not called that anymore. I can't remember what it's called now. But
I've never been a fan.
I don't like the idea of the McAlpine Stadium.
No, it's a bit like the JJB in terms of how I feel about it.
Which is now the Macron. No, it's not the Macron. It's the DW, isn't it?
Yeah, the DW. So it's a bit like that.
No, it'd be nice to see Huddersfield come up actually because. It's like I say, it's always nice to see new teams come up to the league.
That's my argument. I want to see a new stadium, and if it's not called the McAlpine Stadium, then I'm all right with it.
That makes a difference.
It does. It's not a catchy name.
I never liked Turf Moor, and that's one of the reasons I didn't want Burnley to come back up.
But that's a differently named.
I've got over it now. Yeah, but it's not about the name. I don't like the ground. But
have you ever been there? Do you know what and actually this is neatly going to segue into the bottom, which we were going to touch on. Apparently it's a great laugh to go to, but the grimmest looking ground I always think is Ewood Park. It always looks like it's pissing it down there, or horrible mist or rain in the middle of summer.
It is. It just rains over the stadium. That's all it is.
It's just a cloud over it. Apparently it's a great away, and you get a whole end if you go.
See, I mean, the streets in the background, if you look through little cracks in the stadium and out the sides, it looks like they might be filming a new advert for a local bread. You know, it really does still have that. I mean, I haven't seen it up close.
Oh, we're so southern. I do apologise if we do have any northern listeners. I genuinely don't think the north is a shithole. I love the north.
They're doing adverts for Hovis. We're doing adverts for Greggs. I mean, we've got 4 in this town alone.
It levels out. Yeah. In fact, we're from Basingstoke and it's a complete shithole. So please don't take offence. But talking about Blackburn, they are right down there, and looking at it, I mean, from 17th QPR, from 18th Forest on 37 points, right down to 23rd Wigan on 31. Rotherham are gone on 17 pretty much. I mean, it's 2 from 6, isn't it? Really, got Forest, Burton Albion, Wolves, Bristol City, Blackburn and Wigan, and it could be any of 2 of those are going to go down. I'd say.
It's a surprise to see Wolves down there. I suspect. I mean, they've got 2 games in hand. I suspect they'll make their way out of it.
The thing with Wolves, they've recently lost 2 of their sort of best players. They also lost Sacco to Palace, and then also lost to Phoebe.
It's a while ago now, though.
It is.
They should have put that right by now. You'd think.
True.
So Wigan, would it be a shame to see them go down again?
They're sort of yo-yoing now, aren't they?
Yeah. Are Blackburn still owned by the Venkies?
Yeah, I was going to touch on that because it really has been a disastrous ownership, hasn't it? And I know I was talking about Ewood Park earlier, but I genuinely feel sorry for Blackburn fans because that club's been rudderless ever since they took over.
Yeah, ever since those awful adverts that were filmed in the dressing room for players tucking into Venky's chicken breast with awfully fixed smiles on their faces.
Do you reckon that's why they sacked Allardyce, because he wouldn't do that?
And you'd think Big Sam would be up for anything for a bit of extra cash on the side.
Allegedly.
Well, no, a bit of chicken eating. There's nothing wrong with that. Unless it's for
maybe he just didn't like the chicken.
Unless it was for a Sun bet.
Tie it all in. He just didn't like the chicken. Yeah, it's quite a shame to see them down there, really. Again, they're another club that was in the Premier League for a long time, like Leeds and the Wednesday.
Well, obviously won the Premier League as well.
Exactly.
Former winners.
So
I wonder what Jack Walker.
Yeah.
I wonder what he'd make of that now. He'd probably be pretty disgusted, I would think.
Yeah, I can't imagine he'd be pleased about the situation, but I don't know what's going to happen from there. I'm sure there's fans groups sort of protesting against the owners, but that's happened for some time.
Yeah, I mean things are not too dissimilar at Nottingham Forest if we're talking
Yeah,
about
that's
the
true.
bottom 6.
Yeah, they're still about a permanent manager, aren't they? Are they still with her? I don't think they've appointed anyone yet since.
No, I think it's a caretaker duo, isn't it? I can't think of who it. I'm not too informed on who's currently leading Forest, but something needs to change at those two clubs pretty drastically, you would think.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Otherwise, midfield there's a little bit of a mishmash, isn't it? Villa haven't really lived up to expectations.
No.
QPR's down there as well.
Yeah.
Birmingham,
Derby.
mid-table. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams there that are just sort of knocking around and waiting for next season. You
league.
get the feeling that
league.
Villa could really kick on next season simply because they've got a manager with a decent pedigree, and you feel like they'll probably be backed.
I think they'll have a shot now. If they stick by him, I think they'll have a shot. One thing I'd just quickly like to touch on in this league, which I find incredible, is about 2 months ago, Birmingham City were on the playoff area.
Wow.
And then they sacked Gary Rowett.
Oh, yes, no, they were sixth, weren't they?
And put Gianfranco Zola in, who hadn't really done anything of note anywhere.
I think he's only won one game since he's been there.
Something like
that. They are now 14th.
I love Zola as a player.
I mean, nobody disliked Zola, do they?
Even as a guy, but as a manager...
He's been sacked from every job he's had so far.
I seem to remember him doing well briefly at West Ham. Like not. I don't think it was
like
a
early on,
sustained period, but he started okay.
Whereas he's gone into Birmingham and he's taken them on a nosedive. I mean, if he was a pilot, he'd never fly again. So
that sounded a little bit harsh.
What Zola should have done, he should have come in there and brought in Dacanio as his number 2. That's what he should have done. Well, it's probably.
Can you imagine Di Canio agreeing to be anyone's number 2 in life?
No, true. And to be honest, it probably most weeks he gets sent to the stands.
I'm number 2 only to God. Something like that.
Guy could start a fight in an empty house. Okay, that's the Championship. I think it's a very interesting league, and it's one we will continue to revisit throughout the remainder of the season to see what the twists and turns are. I'm conscious we're pushed for time, so let's go on to our last section, which we're going to be previewing the weekend's action. We'll probably just do a bit of a one-liner and a score, I think. So Saturday we're seeing Manchester United versus Bournemouth as the early game. Dan Laundy?
Comfortable home win, Bournemouth in trouble.
Yeah. You should talk about Bournemouth another week. We're pushed for time. It's quite interesting what's happened. But anyway, Mark?
I'm going to go for Manchester United. Manchester United win quite comfortable. 2-0. I say 2-0 Man United win.
I think United win 3-0. I don't see any problems for them whatsoever. Leicester City versus Hull City. Mark, that's an interesting one.
It is. Obviously, Leicester should be on a high and now going back in front of their home fans.
Suddenly expectant again.
Yeah. Hull, down there, but are improving. Under Silva, but I think I'll be to go for a narrow Leicester win on that one, 2-1.
2-1.
Yeah.
Dan?
I think it will probably be a score draw, but I'm not backing Leicester at all for the rest of the season. So
hates Leicester.
Hopefully Hull come out on top, but I think it'll be a draw.
I'm going to go along with you. I think it will be a 1-1 draw. Stoke City versus Middlesbrough.
It's impossible to call.
I'm going to go back to you, Dan.
Oh, thanks.
After you said it was impossible to call.
Borough can't score, and Stoke are coming off the back of another 4-0 defeat by Spurs. I'd say Stoke to sneak it. I'm going to say Stoke 1-0.
Well,
I think it's going to be quite a tight game, so I'm going to go for a drab 0-0 draw.
A drab 0-0. Borough are in all sorts of trouble at the moment. I don't see it stopping, so I'm going to say Stoke will win 2-1. Swansea City versus Burnley. Mark.
Well, Burnley, as we know, are not very good away from home, so I can't see. Swansea have been improving, so I'm going to go for a 1-0 Swansea win, I think, on that one.
Dan?
Really hard to call because, like I say, Burnley do not travel well. and Swansea again have done a bit like Hull and picked up in recent weeks. I think Clement might have this one worked out. I'm just going to edge towards Swansea, so maybe a 2-1 Swansea.
Cool. I don't know why, but I've just got a feeling this will be a goalless draw. No real reason for it, as Mark said. Burnley very poor away from home, so it'd be surprising.
Don't concede a lot of goals.
Conceivable, but I just feel like Llorente will probably sort of get his head on something.
It's true. He's doing very well for them, isn't he? Watford versus Southampton. Dan.
I'll come back to me again.
Oh, did I do you before?
No,
I've completely forgotten who I did. Sorry.
I mean, Watford are so inconsistent. And Southampton, a bit of a hangover from the League Cup. Okay, I'm going to say a Watford home win then. Southampton's still a bit hanging off the cup final.
What?
Like you say, Watford are very inconsistent. One week look good, other week just utter rubbish. Southampton are looking well. They found a goal scorer. Really, Gabbiadini's looking a good signing for him, and I think he'll carry that on. So I think Southampton will win that 2-1.
I was also going to say 2-1 to Southampton. Difficult to know because some teams when they lose or even win the League Cup final actually ends their season, but I think the manner of Southampton's defeat might spur them on a bit. So I'm going to say
much the better team, I thought.
Yeah. So I'm going to say 2-1 to Southampton. I'm going to go back to you, Mark, for your views on West Bromwich Albion against Crystal Palace.
Well, West Brom are doing pretty decent. I think they 8th.
Yeah, they're doing really well actually. They're on 4 points. 4 points isn't very good. 40 points, which they have got. Yeah, that is good.
Which is obviously that's usually the figure that managers look for staying up. So I think
it's the figure he works towards.
Yeah. So I think they're pretty safe. Palace are still looking pretty average. And West Brom at home, I think it's going to be 2-0 to West Brom.
It'd be easy for me to now sitting back West Brom as well, but you mentioned the 40 points, and often when Pulis teams get to 40, they fall off a ledge.
They do knock
so
off.
I'm going to actually say that a draw and leaning towards Palace nicking it.
Fair enough. Actually, this one's the hardest one for me to call because I was thinking 2-0 until you said that about the 40 points. And also, Sakho's made a bit of a difference. Well, I say it's been one game since he came in, but he did well in the last game for them. But I'm going to go with West Brom to edge it 2-1.
Okay.
So it is the 5:30 game, Liverpool versus Arsenal.
Match, gents,
the grudge match, it is, yeah.
I can't see you celebrating down the mic there. There's no camera on.
Well, it wasn't really a celebrate. It was more like a fist pump. It was Mark's holding his head in his hands. It is Liverpool versus Arsenal. I might as well go to Dan Laundy, the man with no stake in this fixture, for his prediction first.
4-4.
4-4. To be honest, we've had a 4-4, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. Yeah,
we have had a 4-4.
Going to arrive from nowhere. Probably
drive a bus onto the pitch. We've had a 4. We've had a 4-4, we've had a 3-4, we've had a 2-4, and we've had a 1-4.
I'm going to say 2-4.
And obviously this season we've had a 4-3.
Yes,
already.
I forgot about that. Yeah. What do you reckon, Mark?
I'm not very confident on this at all. I think we will get a backlash from Liverpool after the rest of the game, and we just don't do very well at Anfield generally. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 Liverpool win.
I backed 3-1 Monday, and that didn't turn out very well.
Yeah.
I hope it's a draw, in all fairness.
I think it will be a draw, actually. As you both know, I'm going to this game. But I think I've just got this feeling that people have gone on so much about the whole Liverpool beat the big teams angle that we won't. And I think it'll be a 1-1 draw.
Quickly moving on to Sunday.
So we're both being pessimistic there in a way.
Yeah.
That's good. We should call ourselves the pessimists. Let's do Sunday. Spurs versus Everton. Now you get the chance to be pessimistic.
I was going to say, I'm not going to buck the trend. I think Spurs have won, 9 back-to-back now?
Is
at
it?
home in the Premier League.
Right.
They are something else at home, it must be said. But Everton are no mugs, and I think it'll be a draw.
Fair enough. Mark?
I think that Everton Everton have looked pretty good in recent weeks. But I think the whole thing with Tottenham being at home, I think Tottenham are pretty unstoppable at White Hart Lane at the moment. So
I look forward to Arsenal arriving in March. Then I think it's in March.
No, he can't wait. He's already got the date etched on his
Harry Kane will
calendar
from 30 yards or something again.
nah,
in a 7-1 defeat.
ruled out for the season by then, broken leg.
I'm not sure if he's joking either.
Gonna go down that muscle. No, I'm joking. I can only see a Tottenham win there. I think Everton will score, but I think actually I'm going to go for a 3-2 Tottenham win. I think there'll be goals in that game. Definitely goals in that game.
Do you know what? I was going to go for 3-2 Spurs all along. I've no idea why. I just think Spurs will win that 3-2. I think, like you say, Everton are doing quite well at the moment. Spurs are really difficult to play at home. Yeah,
It could be
3-2.
really important because if Spurs do get that win and you two do draw, that'll give us a 5 and 6 point respective lead. I think over you then, because it's 3 over on Arsenal got game in hand.
We
But,
beat you the other week. Oh well.
so yeah, big weekend for the top 4. I think those.
Yeah.
Fixtures. But
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
not so big for Sunderland who are facing Man City.
Sunderland City. Yeah.
Got a good record against City in the past. I don't know how
I
long
think
ago
they
that
have.
is.
I think they've taken points off them before.
Yeah.
I don't see it this time. I think City will win. I think it might be like they might like defy the trend and have a low scoring 1-0. Just throw one in there. What do you reckon, Dan?
3-0 for me.
3-0 City. Obviously.
Yeah.
Mark?
Yeah, I can't see anything but a healthy Man City win. Obviously, scored 5 in Europe. He scored 5 again tonight, and I'm going to go for 4-1.
4-1.
Yeah, 4-1 Man City.
Jermaine Defoe to get the consolation with like half an hour to go, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, last 10 minutes, 83 minutes, I reckon he'll score that one.
Wow, well, if you've got a BetSeat 365 account, I suggest you stick a cheeky
Are
five.
we transgressing any FA style laws here? Are we going to be sacked?
No, because we're not players or managers, so therefore we're allowed to talk about gambling.
Ever bang on that?
That's just frightening. If anyone's listening to this with earphones,
Yeah.
laying in bed, that's just terrified them.
Apologies. Sincere apologies.
Swiftly moving on then to the last game.
Yeah, West Ham versus Chelsea. Mark.
I can't see anything else but a Chelsea win. To be honest, they're by far the best team in the league this season, and West Ham are still a bit here and there, aren't they? When it comes to results, so I am going to go for a 2-0 Chelsea win.
I think that's realistic, but I'm going to say that maybe this will be the slight opportunity that Chelsea offer. I'm going to say that it's a draw.
Fair enough. I don't like to use this phrase about anyone other than my own team, and I've never been able to use it for my own team, but Chelsea are the champions elect, and I agree with Mark, I see them winning quite comfortably 2-0.
Yeah, well, we all thought that Hillary Clinton was going to win the election, so if it's that cut and dried,
A Trump candidate's going to come out of nowhere. Right, well, I think that's us done for the week. Unless you've got any other business you wanted to discuss, gents.
no.
Don't think so. I think we're all talked out for this week.
We're all talked out. Our vocal cords are strained, so we'll go away, have some honey and lemon, and we'll be with you again next time. Thanks for listening to the Score to Follow podcast. See you soon.